Hey everyone,
Hey everyone.
welcome to another Travel Therapy Mentor video. Tonight we're going to be talking about our recent trip to Colorado, some tips about travel hacking. We always travel hack on these trips to try to save money, and then also a little bit about traveling while pregnant. We've gotten a lot of questions on Instagram, especially from people asking about, taking road trips or flying while pregnant. So want to touch on a little bit of all of those things. Whitney's going to introduce us, and then we'll jump into the video.
All right, hey everyone, thanks for joining us. For those that may not know us, we're Whitney and Jared Kazaza. We're both traveling doctors of physical therapy. We've been travel PTs for over 9 years now, so going on a decade. We don't work full time as PTs anymore. We take long gaps between our employment as therapists, and we travel the world quite a bit. So this was just our most recent travel adventure. And it was the biggest trip that we've taken while I've been pregnant, so it was definitely interesting. We were gone for about 10 days, so yeah, definitely want to share with you guys a little bit about our trip, where all we went, what all we did, just share some tips and tricks and some information for those of you guys that might be interested.
Yeah, so this was a 10 or 11 day trip that we did. We flew to Colorado, rented a car in Denver, and then basically made a loop around the state. We've been to Colorado several times and have done similar things in the past, road trips. And the main reason we went is last year we had a meetup with a bunch of former travelers, current travelers, friends in southwest Colorado in Durango. And we were going back to do the same thing this year. So that last year was a lot of fun. This year we went back. We decided to make more of a longer trip out of it, because that was just like a three day thing in Durango. And if we're going to fly all the way to Colorado, we might as well make more of a trip out of it. So we decided to rent a car in Denver, drive around, and meet up with more people along the way, and do some hiking, see more of the state. Probably one of our last bigger trips before we have a baby.
Yeah, so when we originally started planning the trip, it was supposed to be this big traveler meetup that we did last year. Last year we had about 15 of our travel therapy friends there. This year life was just a little bit more hectic. In fact, I'm actually really surprised that we were even able to make it work last year, because all of us just have so much going on with our lives, between travel contracts, traveling for fun. Lots of our friends are starting families, having children, getting pregnant, things like that. So
Businesses.
yeah, business, lots of different things. So last year it was actually pretty amazing. We were able to get like 15 of us together, and then this year it ended up only being 5 or 6 of us that were able to make it again. But yeah, Durango is a hard place to fly into. It's a really small airport, so we were like, oh, we'll just go to Denver and make a longer road trip out of it. We have other friends in Colorado that we can visit, and we thought, it'd be a fun little trip to do before we have the baby. However, I will say, when we started planning it several months ago, I think we were a lot more optimistic on how I was going to feel, because we're just so used to booking trips. For those of you guys that have maybe followed us for a while, you might know we've taken trips as long as 5 months abroad. We've taken anywhere from like 2 months to 5 months abroad. We've taken road trips that were 4, 6, 8 weeks long all around the country. So a little 10-day trip didn't seem like a whole lot to plan at the time, but by the time the trip rolled around a week or 2 ago, I was feeling pretty exhausted. I've been really tired now that I'm in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy, and so we were like, oh my gosh, have we bitten off more than we can chew? But overall, it went really well. It was just definitely like we couldn't make it as jam-packed as maybe we would have in the past with activities. But luckily, we've been to Colorado before, so we didn't really need to cram that much in. Mostly, we were there to see friends, which was great.
Yeah, so in addition to Durango, we made some other stops, met up with recruiters, other travelers, friends from the past all along the way. So we turned it into a pretty cool trip. But yeah, it was we planned it a few months ago, and we've actually noticed this quite a bit on recent trips, that we're not as excited as we used to be about going on trips, especially now with Whitney pregnant. We've got a lot to do. It feels like, we don't really have time to do it. So we weren't as excited as we should have been, but it would still turn into a really, really great trip.
Yeah. So we'll tell you more about what we did. We're also going to talk about some travel hacking tips for those of you guys that might be interested in learning more about that. If you are watching live, we'd love if you'd just say hey in the comments. We're live right now on Facebook and Instagram. Feel free to say hello. Let us know you're watching. Let us know if you have any questions throughout. We'd be happy to answer them. Also, shout out to those of you that will listen later on the YouTube channel or the podcast as well.
And the people watching, if you do have any questions just about general travel therapy, we can answer those at the end too. But we'll go through everything first just so we don't waste people's time that want to hear what we're talking about here.
Yeah, so a little bit about planning this trip. We always try to utilize credit card points. Jared has been into credit card points for more than a decade now.
Yeah. But 9 years, seriously, for sure.
Yeah, so especially in the last 9 years since we got out of PT school and actually started having real jobs and having an income and having the ability to meet the spending requirements and do all the things to do the credit card reward bonuses, we've really dove hard into it. And so for years, Jared has been helping us to take really cool trips for very low cost. I was very skeptical back in the beginning when Jared first suggested using credit cards for rewards. I didn't know anything about any of that. I had actually never had a credit card before we met. But I've been really astonished with the amount of free travel, free trips, flights, hotels, everything that we've been able to get over the years. And this trip was no different. We used a lot of those hacks to save on this trip.
Yeah. People always ask questions about like how we're able to, I write a lot about finance. People that followed us a long time know that our goal was to reach financial independence using travel to get there, travel therapy that is. And so it seems kind of crazy that we take all these trips and people wonder how we travel so cheaply. I used to always write trip reports on how much I spent on every single trip we went on, like down to the dollar. A big part of that is credit card points. And now in the last 9 years, it seems kind of crazy, but between Whitney and I, we've probably signed up for 110, 115 credit cards. And that's given us so many airline, hotel points, cash. So that was a big part of any trip that we go on. I don't think we've ever been on a trip where we haven't at least gotten either free flights or free hotels. Every single trip we've been on. And in a lot of cases, especially like on our 5-month trip to Asia or the 4-month trip to Europe, we save many thousands of dollars by using airline points and hotel points. So a huge part of us being able to save money and still travel is credit card points.
Yeah, Jared actually just updated our credit card recommendation page. If you guys are not familiar, if you go to traveltherapymentor.com/credit, periodically he'll update some of the best offers that he finds, and he categorizes them based on what type of rewards you're looking for. Is it airline points? Is it hotel points? Are you just looking for cash back? If you're a beginner into travel hacking, he has some tips on there on how to best utilize the cards. A great way to start out is just getting cash back. But once you have some more freedom and flexibility in your schedule and you're able to plan more trips, you can utilize those airline and hotel points as well. So for this particular trip, we quite often will drive to our nearest major airport, which to us is Charlotte, which is 3 hours away. Otherwise, if we go out of our local airport, we just have to make more connections. So we wanted to do a direct flight. So we were able to fly direct from Charlotte to Denver with airline points. So we got our flights for free, which was great. During the trip, we stayed with friends quite a bit, but we did have several stops where we stayed at hotels, and all the hotel stays were free. We've almost never paid out of pocket for a hotel. So we were able to use, especially our Hyatt points. We get a lot of value out of Hyatt points.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, we pay out of pocket, of course, for Airbnbs, like when we're traveling internationally or taking road trips or whatever, but almost any hotel we've stayed at in the last 9 years has been free with hotel points to some degree. And that, I added it all up and we're at over 110 nights of free hotels. So that's pretty wild.
Yeah. In addition, on this trip, we were able to take advantage of the airport lounges. We checked out the Capital One lounge. I can't remember, was this the first time we did the Capital One, or did we do it one other time?
I think it was the first Capital One lounge.
Okay. So recently we got access to the Capital One lounge. I think they're newer, right? They weren't around before.
There's only 5 or 6.
And that's through my VentureX, Capital One VentureX card, and that was a really awesome lounge. In the past, probably the nicest one we'd ever been to was the American Express, is it the Centurion Lounge, and that's through the Amex Platinum card, but we almost thought the Capital One Lounge was better than the Centurion Lounge, so that was really great. Also,
we did go to a Centurion Lounge in Charlotte on this trip too.
Yeah, that's true. So we went to both of those. That's through specific credit cards. There's several other lounges that we've been to in the past. Most of the lounges we go through are just through Priority Pass, and Priority Pass is a free perk you can get with a lot of the major credit cards.
The premium expensive credit cards.
Yep. So we've utilized the airport lounges all around the world, and that's really nice because you can get access to free food and drinks. It's just a nice environment to hang out in instead of just waiting at the gate. We also utilized TSA PreCheck, which ironically, it took us years to get TSA PreCheck. We just never really took advantage of it, which we should have. But
we really should have. If you travel more than, like, I would say once a year and you don't have TSA PreCheck, you should really get it. It saves us so much time and hassle. We were really crazy for not getting it sooner.
Yeah, so just this past year, we applied for global entry, and then with the global entry, you automatically get the TSA PreCheck, and that was, we were reimbursed for that cost through one of the credit cards. Is that also the VentureX?
We have a bunch that do it, but yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so we just did that back last year and got reimbursed for that cost. The reason we had delayed doing it is because, like I mentioned, we don't live near a major airport. So we kind of thought, like, oh, it's going to be such a hassle to go and do the global entry interview and all this stuff. But once we actually started to dig into it more, we realized that we could do it upon returning into the US, which we always have to return into an international airport, and they do a quick interview, and it was actually pretty easy. So I wish we had done it sooner. But yeah, TSA PreCheck was a big perk. Unfortunately, when we got to the first airport on our flight out, there was some construction, and we ended up in a security line that didn't have TSA PreCheck, and we were very upset because with me, like, traveling pregnant and everything, I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm just stressed and I'm tired, and it'll be so nice when I go through security. I won't have to take off my shoes. I won't have to take my stuff out of my bag. This will make it a lot smoother.
It's a bigger deal than normal because we had a bunch of supplements, protein powder, food, like snacks, all these things that you have to take out if you go through the regular line that you don't take out through TSA PreCheck line. So yeah, it was kind of a pain.
Yeah, but luckily on the way back we were able to utilize it, so it was fine. But yeah, so we definitely used a lot of our travel hacking perks and things on this trip, even though it was a shorter trip. So highly recommend, if you've not gotten on the travel hacking game, on the credit card reward game, that you check into it and start learning more about it, because it saves us a lot of money and a lot of hassle when we travel.
For sure. Like, probably over the last 9 years, I would say we've saved $50,000 or $60,000 between hotels, flights, and then just money that we've gotten from credit cards. Maybe even more than that. So can be a really big way to make just extra money or save money on your travels.
Yep. So a little bit more, we'll tell you just a little more detail about what we did on this trip in case you're looking to plan your own trip to Colorado. If you've never been, it's a beautiful state. We've only ever been in the summer. Well, that's not true. We went one time in the winter for a conference and got to see a little bit of the mountains and the snow. But for the most part, we've been in the summer to do a lot of hiking and just outdoor things. Really cool state. So we started in Denver and saw one of our recruiters there. And then we drove down to Colorado Springs and stayed with one of my friends from college. Got to see her family. A lot of the friends that we met up on this trip also had children. So that was just kind of a good introduction. I mean, we've obviously hung out with our friends that have children before, but it was just kind of a nice time to be getting our brains wrapped around being parents ourselves soon, and hang out with our friends that also have kids. So got to see our friends in Colorado Springs. We didn't do a whole lot in Colorado Springs. We've been before, so it was really more about seeing friends. It wasn't about the touristy stuff this time. However, Jared did take on the Manitou Incline, which, if you're not familiar with that, it's a really tough hike that just goes basically straight up for a mile, up like how many thousands of steps?
2,700 steps.
Yeah, and it ascends like, I think, 2,000 feet of elevation in less than a mile. So it's a really tough hike, especially if you're not used to the altitude in Colorado. If you're from Colorado, a lot of people get really good at it and do it all the time. But the first time we came through Colorado Springs in 2019 and tried to do it, we were not prepared and we failed, and we bailed out about 3/4 of the way up. There's a bailout point where you can quit and just go off to the side and come back down. But this time Jared was ready and he conquered it.
Yeah, it was 2019, pretty tough. We made a lot of mistakes then. I thought it would be a lot easier this time. I'm in better shape. We went earlier in the day, so it wasn't as hot. Thought it would be fine, and it was still pretty tough. So the people that can like do it multiple times in a day, that's insane. Yeah.
And when he says we, I did not go. I was not about to try to take that on while 6 months pregnant, with the altitude, with the heat, all that. He went with my friend's husband, and they knocked it out. So that was pretty cool. I was really proud of him.
So after that, we had like a six-hour drive or so to Durango. Stayed there for 3 nights with our friends, former travelers, and met up with some other travelers there, and it was a lot of fun. We We did a lot of things there. We went hiking. We had campfires. We talked a lot. It was a really good trip to Durango again.
Yep, so it's great to connect with our travel friends. It's always nice to just connect with like-minded friends. That's honestly one of the biggest perks of travel therapy that we found. We've met so many cool people all around the country. So the friends that we met up with there, they're from Ohio, but they now live in Colorado. The other friends that came and met us there are from different parts of the country. One of them is actually from the UK originally, the other one's from Georgia, but now they live in Washington, but now we're here in Colorado meeting up with them. So we just get to connect and meet with people from all over the country, which has been a really cool perk of travel therapy for sure.
Yep. And then after that, we went to Aspen. We'd never been to Aspen before. We'd been to some of the mountain towns. We've been to like Breckenridge and Vail, but we'd never been to Aspen. So we went there, spent the night, and then we did Maroon Bells, which is a really cool area, cool hike that you can do right outside of Aspen.
Yep, it's a scenic nature area. You can definitely do a variety of activities there. We had heard that it was really beautiful, but we weren't able to go last time that we were in the area because you had to have a permit and we didn't know to register in advance. So this time we registered in advance. You can do anything from just walk from the parking lot a quarter mile to the lake and just look at it, to there's like 20-mile hikes you can do there. Obviously we didn't do the really hard hikes. We just did like a 5-mile hike kind of around the lake, but it was so pretty and we had really great weather. The wildflowers are really nice this time of year, so if you have not checked out Maroon Bells, I would definitely check it out.
Nick said he just watched Dumb and Dumber today, which is ironic. I made a lot of Dumb and Dumber jokes while we were in Aspen.
Yeah, Aspen was a little overrated in our opinion. I mean, you know, obviously people go there in the winter to ski. We were there in the summer, but it just seemed like the bougie ski resort town, whereas like I think there's probably lots of better places that are not so bougie, not so expensive to go and ski and enjoy the mountains in Colorado. It just so happened we had to go there because that's where Maroon Bells is, but I don't think that we would go out of our way to go back to Aspen ever. It's very expensive.
Yeah, there's a lot of amazing mountain towns in Colorado.
Yeah. So from there we went to Glenwood Springs, where we've actually been before as well, and that was just a quick stopover. We also met up with a bunch of travel therapy friends there, current and former travel. Actually, I guess they were former travelers. One of them ended up there because of a contract and then ended up liking it, so she settled down there. So that was awesome, just to reconnect with some more friends there in Glenwood. And then we took a little detour on our way back to Denver through a place called Leadville, which I didn't know much about, but I guess it's where they have the Leadville 100 race.
Ultra marathon.
Yeah, so it's a pretty famous ultra marathon through the mountains. So that was a really beautiful area. We went to a historic saloon. If you've never been out west, the first time we ever went out west, I just thought it was amazing that you could go to these like Wild West like saloons. They have these original bar saloons there, and this one was like from the 1800s, so that was pretty cool. Lots of cool memorabilia there. Yeah. After
that, back to Denver, spent the night there. We were a little bit worried about our flight back home because the storm went through the East Coast. We didn't really know what was going on back on the East Coast, but our moms told us that there was a tropical storm coming through and that there was going to be a lot of rain. So we were worried that our flight would get canceled. It was exactly the time that the storm was going through that we were supposed to fly back to Charlotte. But we got lucky. Mostly the storm had passed by the time we got there, and wasn't nearly as bad as we thought it would be.
Yeah, so that was the Hurricane Debbie or Tropical Storm Debbie that obviously probably a lot of you were affected by in Florida and the Southeast. But yeah, we just hadn't really been paying much attention because we were out west. But luckily all was well and we made it back in time. But we did decide just to stay overnight in Charlotte when we got back in town, so that we didn't have to drive back at night in the rain, and that ended up being a good choice. And luckily, again, we just had some hotel points, so we just at the last minute kind of booked a hotel for the night in Charlotte by the airport, and it was no big deal. But yeah, overall it was a really good trip. We got to see a ton of travel therapists and other friends.
We met up with 2 other travelers in Denver as well. So yeah, I mean, we also met up with one of our recruiters in Denver, so we probably saw 10 or 12 people that we've met over the years. And it's a really cool part about being a traveler is that we pretty much have friends all over the country. So now when we do road trips or we go almost anywhere, there's people there to meet up with, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's just such a cool part about being a travel therapist. Like, obviously our lifestyle is a little bit to the extreme now where we take a lot longer periods off between contracts, but we know so many travel therapists that are able to take off a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month between contracts and do things like this that they never would have otherwise done. Even though to us this was quote unquote like a short trip, a 10-day trip, how many people do you know that have regular jobs that just can regularly take like 10 days off and go on a cool road trip all around Colorado or wherever? So it's been just an amazing perk of being a travel therapist, whether you're meeting up with other travel therapist friends or other friends and family. Like one of the groups that we met up with, that was one of my undergrad friends who I've only seen her a handful of times since we graduated undergrad 12 years ago or however long ago. And, you know, that's another great way just to go and see family and friends in other parts of the country. And then also there's just so much to explore. Like if you followed us for a while, we've been to all 50 states, we've been to all the national parks, and yet we still all the time find new and amazing things to do in the country. So it's just a really cool perk of being a travel therapist and having that flexibility.
And like we mentioned earlier, we've been on a lot of international trips, long trips, 5, 4, 3, 2 months long out of the country. And people always think that those trips are amazing, and they are amazing, but our favorite trips are always the road trips. We really enjoy just road trips around the United States, road trips into Canada, seeing all of the beauty that the United States and Canada have to offer. So yes, it's always fun traveling internationally, but there's a lot of perks of just traveling around the United States, doing road trips around the country. There's so much to see and do.
Yeah, and we're going to get into talking a little bit more about like kind of what our plans are going to be in the upcoming months or years once we start a family. And something I'm honestly looking forward to so much is exploring more within driving distance of home, because even though we've seen a lot of the country, there's still so much within a few hours of where we're from that we've never seen. Like, for example, we live right by West Virginia, and we've not really done a ton of outdoor stuff in West Virginia, and I know there's a lot there to see that we would love to go and explore. So there's just always more to see and explore, and I feel that becoming travel therapists has definitely given us more of an adventurous mindset. Both of us grew up here in Southwest Virginia, right by the Appalachian Trail, and we had never hiked before like PT school and like becoming travel therapists right after that. So I think it's just like brought out this adventurous spirit in us to want to go and see and do more.
Southwest Space Virginia, not South Space West Virginia.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a couple questions about family stuff. We'll go into that a little bit. So just a little bit about traveling while pregnant, in case anyone wants to know a little bit about that. It wasn't too bad overall, but as I mentioned, I've just been really fatigued. So that's been harder because I just have to take more rest breaks than usual. I can't just go all day. So I had to really keep that in mind, especially when it came to like the hiking. I was a little worried about like doing stuff all day, going hiking, meeting friends for dinner, all that. We took a couple naps when we were able to. I was a little worried about the altitude, but I actually did pretty good.
Yeah, I was worried about the altitude for her. I mean, we've had quite a bit of experience at altitude now, but we by no means live at a high altitude or anything, so I didn't know how it would affect her now being pregnant. But we did like some short hikes over 10,000 feet, 10,000, 11,000 feet, and she did really, really well with it. No real issues at all.
Yeah, up until like a couple weeks ago, we were still doing some fairly hard hikes. During my pregnancy, we had done some like 8 and 10 milers. But a few weeks ago, the last time we did an 8 miler in Virginia, I was just really exhausted and really dehydrated for like a couple days afterwards. I felt like it really took me a while to recover. So we pretty much decided that on this trip we were just going to stick to like 2, 3, 4 mile hikes, and that went pretty well for us. The longest that we did was about 5.5 miles, and I was really tired after that one, but overall pretty good. So there were some considerations from my doctor as far as traveling. So when we left, I was like 26, 27 weeks, and then now I'm 28 weeks now that we got back. So the doctor recommended that I took low dose aspirin leading up to and during the trip just to prevent blood clots. So that's something that I did. He also recommended that I wear compression socks on the flights and the long drives. So I did that as well, and that helped just to control swelling. Also recommended that I take a lot of movement breaks, walking and stretching. So I made sure to do that, while we were on the road trip part of it. We'd stop every like 2 hours or so, get out, stretch. Most of the time you need to go to the bathroom anyway, so it just makes sense. And on the airplane, I got up to stretch and walk, and that all went pretty well. I definitely got some back pain with like prolonged sitting in the car and on the plane. So definitely had to just try to incorporate more stretching and that sort of thing.
Besides that, we brought a lot of snacks, supplements, things that she needed. That helped a lot. Having more consistency with what we're used to at home.
I've definitely noticed I've had a lot of digestive issues during pregnancy, so I've been trying to incorporate more fiber and things like that, making smoothies. So I brought some of those supplements with me that I would need, and we also went to a grocery store and picked up some stuff along the way. I just feel like I've had to be more intentional about what I'm eating during pregnancy. You can't just live on burgers and pizza like you do sometimes when you travel. Tried to just be a little more intentional about my nutrition during traveling. I think that's definitely one of the harder parts about traveling when you're pregnant. I mean, ideally when you travel, you should try to eat healthy all the time, but we've come to realize that's hard to do.
It's really hard to do
when you can't cook all the time when you travel. So we definitely end up eating worse when we travel. So because I really wanted to focus on my nutrition and my digestion and everything, I had to be a lot more intentional about that while traveling, while pregnant. So for that reason, it's been better to be at home. We love traveling so much, but it's been so nice to be at home and be in more of a routine during my pregnancy. And that was part of the reason we were kind of just a little bit ready to get back from this trip, to get back into that routine. Along those same lines, I really just had to make sure to hydrate more. We brought some electrolyte packets and that sort of thing. I feel like you just get dehydrated really easy when you're traveling anyway. And then the last thing just to touch on as far as pregnancy with traveling, I kind of mentioned the TSA PreCheck. That was helpful when I was able to utilize it. And then also I requested to pre-board. I had read online that if you are pregnant, pretty much apparently for any reason, if you just tell them you need to pre-board because you need extra time, they don't really ask. They're just like, okay, if you need to pre-board because you need extra time, fine. But I mean, I'm kind of pretty obviously pregnant. So I was just like, hey, I'm pregnant. Can I pre-board so I have a little extra time? And that was nice just to get on the plane first with the old people and the people in the wheelchairs and the people with babies and kids. It just gives you more time to get settled with all your stuff and all that kind of thing.
A little bit seemed like cheating, but it was really nice.
Yeah. So, and I guess if we travel with kids, that'll be something that we will also get the perk to do, because then you can get settled in with all your things. And that's the next little bit we wanted to touch on, was traveling with kids, because people have been asking us about that.
Yeah, a lot of people want to know if we're going to continue taking trips with kids in the future, or if we're going to continue taking travel contracts with kids in the future, and really we're not sure. I would say that, we're definitely going to take trips, like road trips, and go places around the United States for sure. I don't know as much about international travel, and I don't know as much about travel contracts yet. We'll just have to see how things go. But yeah, we know a lot of people that have kids that didn't really change their lifestyle at all. They still travel, still take travel contracts, they still take a lot of trips. Our friends that we met up with in Durango on this trip, shout out to Joe and Sarah, they have a baby that is, 10 months? Mm-hmm. 10 months, and he's been on 20 flights already. So there's definitely people that do it, and you can do it. I'm not sure how much traveling we're gonna do, but we will certainly travel some.
Yeah, I think the best part about the lifestyle that we've designed via travel therapy is just that we have the choice. So we are going to have the optionality to make it work. We don't ever plan to have traditional 9 to 5, 40-hour work week around the year jobs. And so whether we continue to do travel therapy, or continue to work online, or continue to work PRN, or whatever our work-life balance looks like, it's going to allow flexibility for travel if we want to. We're just going to see how that looks, because we've never had kids before and we just don't know what to expect. So we're not setting any expectations for ourselves. We're not locking ourselves into, yes, we're definitely going to be the travel family, but we're open to it. We're just going to see what feels right. We, like Jared said, we know tons of people that make it work, both travel contracts and traveling for fun. We just have friends at home that travel for fun with their kids all the time. From what we understand and what we've learned, there's just so much more gear and things to consider. Right now we pack pretty light and we do carry-ons. It's definitely not going to be possible once we have kids. You're going to have strollers and car seats and all kinds of things to pack and bring with you, but it's definitely possible. It'll just look a little bit different.
And as far as travel contracts, we're definitely not sure if we will or not. But there are obviously a lot more logistics depending on how old the kids are and stuff like that. Childcare is an issue. If you have both spouses or both travelers work, then that makes childcare difficult, finding somewhere that you like and trust that you can take your kid. I think most people that travel with kids, especially younger kids, they end up having one work and one not work, or they work part-time, or they do home health where they can kind of switch off, things like that. So you can definitely make it work, but there's certainly more logistics to think about, especially with things like housing too. Like it's much, I mean, obviously you can't rent a room in a house with a baby. You have to, whereas like there's some travelers, some single travelers for sure, and then some couples that are fine to rent a room in a house and it's not a big deal. You can't do that with a baby. So having, at least a 1-bedroom apartment or a house or something, or an RV, there's just a lot more to think about with traveling with kids. And then if they're older kids, you have to think about school and are you going to homeschool? Are you going to change schools? All those things are very difficult. So there's a lot more logistics to think about with travel contracts with kids, but we definitely know a lot of people that do it.
Yeah. Chuck, there was some comments on Instagram asking about kids. I don't know if they were specific or just kind of in general asking.
Hello, I've been anxious about starting a family and how you do that. Hopping all over the place. I'm loving travel, but always thought it would have to stop when I had kids. Super interested to hear about your experience.
Yeah, so like we were saying, we don't know for sure whether we're going to continue travel contracts with a child for the foreseeable future. We definitely are going to be at home. But we do know lots of people that do travel with their children. I just had a phone call earlier with one of our travel friends, Abby. They're going to be continuing travel therapy. Her and her husband are both PTs. But as Jared mentioned, one of them is going to take a contract while the other one stays with the baby in the new location. We've got several friends that have done that. We've talked to several different couples that do it that way. It really does help when both of you are therapists, or when one of you has the option to work as the healthcare provider taking the travel contracts, and the other one of you has the option to stay home. So it doesn't necessarily even have to be that you're both therapists, but that's typically how people do it because it just makes more sense with childcare instead of you both trying to find work in the new place and then trying to find childcare locally. And because travel therapy and travel healthcare is so lucrative, a lot of families are really able to make it work on that one travel income, allowing the other spouse to stay with the child.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to it because we talked about this just recently. Whitney and I think a lot of women want to take at least 3 months, 6 months off after they have a kid. And if you can travel during that time and have a spouse that can travel, taking a travel contract can make enough to cover basically both perm positions' pay. In a lot of cases, you can make double. So while the other spouse takes time off, if you're able to make a travel contract work, it can make a lot of sense financially. So.
Yeah, it's not for everybody because some people would just prefer to be closer to family and have additional support during those early years. But a lot of people do want to still just be on the road. Some people prefer just to take longer contracts so they have more stability. Maybe you sign up for a 6-month contract or a 9-month contract, so you're kind of in the same place for a while, but still making that good travel money and still getting to do some fun adventure things on the weekends.
Yep.
But yeah, if it is something you're interested in, we know tons of people that are making it work. But yes, you'll just have to take a look into all these logistics. Like insurance is another one that we get questions about. There's a lot of considerations there, but you can definitely make it work if you want to.
Yep. Alex said that she's going to Colorado in September.
Awesome, cool. Alex. So if anybody else has any other questions or comments, just drop them down below and we will address them. But we're going to kind of wrap up here with just kind of talking about our upcoming plans and what you guys can expect to see from us.
Allie was talking about the ultramarathon. Ultramarathon running is amazing. Yeah, it's insane. I don't know how people even run a marathon, much less ultramarathons. It's really insane. Yeah.
So as we mentioned, I just started my 3rd trimester, so we have about 12 weeks or so until my due date. So really the baby could come, anytime in the next 12 weeks, hopefully closer to the end of the 12 weeks. We're really hoping to go full term there. And I'm already feeling the pressure of like, oh gosh, we only have 12 more weeks to get ready. So I'm really excited to be back home and be diving into, kind of the to-do list to get everything ready for when the baby comes. So for the foreseeable future, we're pretty much going to be here in Virginia until the baby comes. We do have one other small trip coming up in 3 or 4 weeks. We're going to the beach with family. I'll be 32 weeks pregnant at that time. I definitely feel like I'm pushing it a little bit going to the beach at 32 weeks, but luckily it's just a short trip, just driving distance from home. So it shouldn't be too bad. It should be more relaxed, more chill, not
Yeah.
cramming in as many activities like we did in Colorado.
That's kind of why the Colorado trip we were a little hesitant at the end there to go, because we had so much planned, and we know that those trips are exhausting, and Whitney's already tired quite a bit during the day anyway. But this trip to the beach will be a lot more laid back. There's no deadlines to do anything, so it shouldn't be a big deal. But that's coming up in about a month.
Yeah, so for the next couple months, we're just going to be home, kind of getting ready for the baby. We got a lot to do between now and then to get prepared, get the nursery set up, all those things. We're also going to be trying to get caught up on a lot of content. So you guys will be seeing a lot of content come out from us, travel therapy content, as well as just general travel content. I'm a little behind on some articles like from our travels this past year. Still have an article to get out about our honeymoon trip where we went to Europe last summer. A lot to share about that. We've got some stuff to share about our South America and Antarctica trip. So keep an eye out on social media for those articles and videos and things that we're going to be sharing about those travels.
That honeymoon trip was over a year ago, by the way.
I'm a little behind. So I'm hopeful to be able to get caught up on those articles before baby comes, and get some content out to you guys about that kind of stuff. We've also got some new travel therapy articles coming out soon, some topics that we've been getting a lot of questions about. We're also going to do a sale soon on our travel therapy course. So if you've been thinking about taking our travel therapy course, keep an eye out for the sale that will be coming up soon. It's a really good time to get into travel therapy. We've mentioned that a lot on our social media pages lately, but it's a phenomenal time, especially as a PT. The job market is really good. We've been sharing some good travel jobs on our page. So if you've been thinking about, if you're kind of on the fence about getting into travel therapy, especially travel PT, now is a really good time. So please reach out to us. We're going to be hanging out at home, so we'll have some availability to chat with you and help you get started for sure.
Yeah, we've been really jealous of some of the jobs that are popping up right now, both pay-wise and location-wise. Like, it would have been crazy 9 years ago when we started if some of those jobs were available. So if you're interested in travel, now is definitely a great time to do it.
Yeah, gosh, some of the new grads we've recently mentored, like 2 of them that we've been in contact with for a while, we've been mentoring them to help them get started on their first travel jobs. They're a travel PT couple, and they're getting ready to take a one-on-one outpatient with pretty high pay in a coastal beach town as their very first jobs out of school. And we're like, wow, like what a phenomenal job opportunity. And then our friends that I was talking about that just had the baby, and one of them is going to be taking a contract. He was able to find just like the absolute perfect contract, exactly what they wanted. High pay, one-on-one. They're flexible with his hours.
And the location they wanted.
In the location they wanted. So it's just, you can really call the shots right now, especially as a PT on your contracts. So it's a really good time to get into it. So I don't know, who knows, maybe in 6 months after that we've gotten used to the baby for a little while, maybe we'll hit the road and take a contract. We'll see. Just stay tuned.
Yeah, anything's possible. Our lives have been crazy the last 9 years, so who knows what the next 9 years will be like.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, we'll wrap up for tonight. Hopefully this was helpful for some of you guys, and maybe you just enjoy hearing about us. If not, no worries. We'll be back next time talking more about a specific travel therapy educational topic, so we'll get back on that ball soon.
All right, take care, everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye.